made contact and shattered.
At some point, Chris locates what's called a dry bag.
Law enforcement had considered Laundrie the only person of interest in the murder of his fiancée, Gabby Petito.
Reference to a missing 4-year-old. The parents have called in and advised that the mother had went for a walk, came home, now they can't find her. They've been yelling for her. She's been gone for about 10 minutes now.
Turn it over to another agency. Let's get some help.
Hello? That's John.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here for another ATS live stream. We're talking the Delphi case again today, and I think I just want to focus on the crime scene, and obviously I put it in quotes because the public really hasn't been given much information at all about the crime scene. What little we have been given kind of leaked out 5 months ago, so I kind of want to go back through that information that came out earlier this year about the search warrant that was done on Ron Logan's property. It actually gave details about just the scene of that day, etc. So I know that there's like a lot of different moving parts in this case, like Keegan Kline and all that. So right now today, we're just going to focus on the who, what, when, where, why, and how. And obviously we won't be able to answer all those questions. And a lot of those questions won't be answered until it goes to trial. But we're going to do our best to kind of just focus on those moments on the bridge, the phone being taken out, the recording, and then what information we did find out from the search warrant on Ron Logan's property. We've gone through a lot of this information in other streams, but the difference that I kind of want to do today is just take out all the other fluff. So we're not going to mention Keegan Kline. We're not going to mention Anthony Schatz. I mean, it is what kind of led them there in a way. So we can kind of just mention in the beginning, but I just want to focus on Abby and Libby, their last recording on the phone that we have, what information we can gather from it. And now this is a really good point that was brought out to me in the comment section. And I know that people have been following the case for a lot longer than me and a lot closer. So I know that this probably came from one of those subscribers. So thank you so much for opening my mind and obviously stating almost an obvious fact. The bridge guy video that we have with him walking and the sound that we get of him saying guys down the hill, it was mentioned in my comment section that it's important for us to kind of keep in mind also that, just because it's showing him walking and saying that at that moment doesn't necessarily mean that the audio matches up with the visual. So guys down the hill could have been, at the end of the 43-second clip or in the middle of the 43-second clip. It doesn't necessarily mean she started recording. That's the visual that she got, and that's the voice that went with it at that time. So I thought that was an interesting point to kind of bring to my attention. And it's definitely important to keep in mind because once we think we know something, it's obvious that without anything public, we can't be so certain on what we think we know, okay? So anyways, let's go through a pre-recorded edit stuff that I put together for you guys of just catching up on the case and just speaking about key elements. And then we will go into compare. Is Karen here? Hi, Mel Mac and Yarn and Mittens, Evil CJ Concept. I saw Florida Bass Fishing in here. Hello. Erica, Jack, hello, Rhonda, Ashley, Mel Mac, Caroline, Joseph. Thanks for being here, guys. So we did a comparison of Ron Logan and Bridge Guy. And then we pretty much came to the conclusion, no, Ron is too big. It would be stupid for him to put the bodies on his own property. Like we went through the whole, like our feelings on Ron and compared it. But one of my moderators missed that live stream. So I decided to put Richard Allen's comparison that we did last time next to Bridge Guy. And then I did Ron Logan next to Bridge Guy. And I'm telling you guys, there are still people commenting in my videos saying that Ron Logan is Bridge Guy. And I'm not saying that these people are, crazy. I'm not saying anything wrong. I'm just saying, just because we think, or the majority thinks Richard Allen is bridge guy, I just want to entertain the idea of those who think that Ron Logan is bridge guy. So we're going to do a little bit another comparison. So, which is relevant still too, because if we're going to talk about the crime scene, it was on Ron Logan's property. So we'll keep him in the mix for this stream. All right. And then, we like to reference Court TV. They obviously did their own special on the evidence that was, the crime scene. Everything that we find out in the warrant from Ron Logan, Court TV did their own segment on it. So once we go through our little edited stuff, and then we'll go to that segment, which is like 44 minutes. We'll be doing commercials, skipping through and all that. So thank you guys for being here. Stay with me. We got some interesting stuff to talk about. And yeah, let's just get started. Good morning, Angela. It's good to see you. The Ron Logan search warrant alludes to the guy on the bridge as being the guy that said down the hill, one in the same. Yes. Yep. And, I definitely see that. There are people who are still uncertain that that's Richard Allen, believe it or not. And thank you all for being here. If you haven't, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe. Hello, Marshall Dove. It's good to see you. Oh, I'm glad you're here, Erica. And hi, CK. Okay. Let's get into it. Abby and Libby went missing after going for a hike at 1 p.m. on February 13, 2017 near the Monon High Bridge along Delphi Historic Trails. The friends were reported missing when they failed to meet up with a family member at a prearranged location following the hike. The girls' bodies were found on February 14, 2017 at 12:15 p.m. around 60 feet from a creek, about 3/4 of a mile upstream from where they were last seen. Across Delphi, posters in windows, shops, and on buildings show images of the suspect, and law enforcement has made appeals for information about the girls' murders. The Delphi murder suspect, who is accused of killing 2 girls, has been appointed an attorney after writing a letter to the judge begging for help. Richard Matthew Allen, 50, of Indiana, wrote a desperate letter to the judge earlier this month begging for help and a public defender. I am begging to be provided with legal assistance and a public defender or whatever help is available. At my initial hearing on October 28, 2022, I asked to find representation for myself. However, at the time, I had no clue how expensive it would be just to talk to someone. I throw myself at the mercy of the court. The court has appointed Andrew Joseph Baldwin of Baldwin, Perry, and Camish, and Bradley Rozzi of Hillis, Rozzi, and Dean to represent the alleged murderer. The victims went missing from the Monon High Bridge Trail, a former railway bridge, and law enforcement said their bodies appeared to have been moved and staged. Allen is also being accused of taking a souvenir from the crime scene, but it has not been released what exactly he took. He was arrested in October 2022 and charged with 2 counts of murder on Halloween. He is being housed at an unknown jail, which is being kept under wraps for his safety. It remains unclear what led police to arrest Richard Allen, and the state police will not be releasing evidence in the case under a court order. Since Richard Allen's arrest, it has also been revealed that his home was less than 2 miles from the Delphi train bridge where Williams and German were last seen alive. Exactly how the girls died remains unknown to the public, and the state their bodies were discovered in also remains shrouded in mystery. Over the summer, the details of a search warrant revealed that Libby and Abby were found covered in blood and that their killer appeared to have taken a souvenir of some sort from the murder site. The girls' bodies were also staged in a particular way after their death, but it remains unclear exactly how they were left. Investigators also believed photographs or videos were likely shot of the grotesque setup to memorialize the crime scene. Delphi police have always been tight-lipped on crucial components of the investigation, including how the girls died or what kind of condition their bodies were in when they were found. Indiana State Police said in February they knew who killed the girls, but that they had insufficient evidence to make an arrest. It is unclear whether they were referring to Allen or not. Indiana cops released Snapchat footage documented by the girls in 2017 of a man following them closely on a bridge shortly before their deaths. This mysterious man was dubbed the Bridge Guy. The photo was a heavily built man in jeans and a blue jacket who could be seen approaching the girls, and in a brief snippet of audio that was released, the man could be heard saying, "Guys, down the hill," to the girls. The full clip is allegedly 43 seconds long, but in its contents are believed to be too disturbing to share in full. Their bodies were found close to the bridge the day after they vanished, with several suspects being linked to the case over the years, but no arrests were made until Richard Allen. Many believe it is unclear if Allen is the man in the footage or the voice which uttered the phrase "down the hill" is Richard Allen. Libby German's mother, Carrie Timmons, said she was surprised when Richard Allen was charged with the murder of her daughter and her friend Abby. She said, "It's been extremely emotional. Of course, I'm excited and happy there's been an arrest, but he hasn't been proven guilty. It's all alleged, so it's not a time to celebrate. It's all been rather triggering because it's bringing everything back, and in a sense, I'm reliving everything all over again, but it feels like we're now at the beginning of the last chapter, so I hope that's the case, but there's still a long road ahead of us." She said, "I want nothing more than to look this person in the eye, so as terrified as I am by the thought of it, I am trying to prepare myself for that moment. But I don't believe there's going to be any closure, not until I'm no longer here and I'm back with Libby again. Closure is not really what I'm looking for anyways. I want peace. I want peace for the girls. Those girls need justice so they can rest in peace, and I need that from them more than anything. It's very surreal still. As long as I've waited for this moment, nothing could have prepared me for it." She added, "I want to go to court and I hope we can get a conviction, but there's still a lot of questions. We don't know what evidence law enforcement has. It feels like there are now more questions than we've ever had before." Carrie Timmons also believes that Richard Allen should suffer the rest of his life after killing her daughter, before adding that death is too good for him. Richard Allen is expected to be back in court on November 22nd, 2022. All right, and thank you everyone who has joined us since we started. Vicky, Twisted Gemini, it's good to see you guys. Joseph Lloyd said, "I'm thinking Keegan Kline must be a star witness. That would be called probable cause for arrest." Definitely a possibility. I know that we went through law enforcement's statement when he was questioned that, and he kind of danced around the answer a bit. If you guys haven't seen that live stream, check it out. But in this little segment, I took some notes. And again, I just want to paint the picture of that day. And part of that is the fact that their bodies were found 3/4 of a mile upstream from the bridge. So they go to the bridge, they get dropped off, they start walking. Somebody's following them, something strange is going on. Libby decides to document it and has her phone out and videotapes the man. And it says right in there that he was following them. So the part of the bridge where he's right there at that part, how long was Libby recording before that part was there? You know what I mean? Like, was he further away? And like, what exactly were the last moments there on that bridge? When they were found on Ron Logan's property, obviously covered in blood, they allegedly had missing clothing from each of them. They haven't specified which clothing piece. Here, this segment said that he had took souvenirs from the bodies. I think that might be referring to the clothing that was taken. I'm not 100% sure. Again, there are things all over the place with this case because it is almost 6 years old. So a lot of people have reported on it. But we'll look at the search warrant and we'll see exactly what was stated by FBI, okay? So, 60 feet away from the creek when they were discovered, covered in blood. Was that creek there as sort of pre-planned, premeditated to, quickly go in there and rinse off if the murderer needed to. It's just, to me, the fact that it's right there near a creek is significant. Because everyone wants to know, where did the murderer's clothing go? It says in the FBI report that he would obviously be covered in blood. Like, there's no if, ands, or but about it. There would be blood all over the assailant. So his house is less than 2 miles away from this. So the bridge, then 3/4 of a mile upstream from the bridge is their bodies. Less than 2 miles away is Richard Allen's home. So, he doesn't even need a vehicle to be waiting for him somewhere. Some people think that he did have a car waiting for him. Other people think that he just ran home. He knows the area, etc. I also thought it was noteworthy that the 43 seconds that they have of this clip, they can't share it because it's too disturbing. So it just obviously leaves you scratching your head and just worried, sick for these girls. Now we get up to this, which is on the screen. And I know you guys have seen this article. Gray Hughes recorded himself reading it. It came out earlier this week. Richard Allen, the man arrested early on, and we already knew that he came forward to do search efforts in the case. So he volunteered and said, "Oh, let me help you find these girls." And remember that they're not found. I mean, they are found pretty quickly in comparison to other missing persons cases. So, he helps them. And I want to know exactly where he was looking. Was he deterring searchers from that area, the crime scene, or was he just kind of eyeing where people were going, watching it go down? It's just very creepy. So he volunteered for the search. And then here it indicates that there was a conservation officer, and the conservation officers aren't like they go to a law enforcement academy, I believe, but they're trained differently. They're not, I don't know, law and order officers. I don't even know if that's the right terminology, but conservation is obviously we have a school here. It's called ESF, Environmental Science and Forestry School. And you can study to become a conservation officer there. Like, you protect the parks, and maybe you're a park ranger. It's something like that. It's not like Richard Allen went up to the sheriff and he said, "Hey, I was near that Monon High Bridge today. Just wanted you to know, maybe you want to take my statement." It wasn't that type of officer. So I'm not trying to demean the conservation officers. I'm just trying to paint like a visual of what went down. And Richard Allen approached somebody that was not wearing like a law enforcement uniform. He was just, whoever he or she was wearing is like a conservation officer. Like, I don't even know. You guys know what I'm talking about. You're all older than me, all of you guys. And judging by some of your comments in my comment section, you guys seem to know a lot. Some of them very rude and snarky on this case, which is fine. I know you guys have been following it much closer than me, some of you guys. So I appreciate you guys criticizing. I want to get the facts. So it doesn't bother me at all if you guys got to correct me in the comment section about something that I got wrong, or maybe something I need to think about and consider. So I appreciate all the replay viewers and everyone who participates in the chats. So thank you very much. Joseph Lloyd said they've also talked about a deer blind being a possible location he was taking them or had taken them. That would make sense too. Yeah, it is. It's creepy that he placed himself there. Also allows him to explain all kinds of trace woodland evidence, especially stuff not directly on the victim, right? Like, he could just be like, "Well, of course you'd found my footprint. I helped you guys with the search," or something. You know what I mean? All right. So now that we've kind of gone through some notes and all that, let's continue this. And I believe we're going to get into the search warrant from Ron Logan. So stay with me, guys. And if you haven't hit the like, give me a like.
The agent writes, a large amount of blood was lost by the victims at the crime scene. Because of the nature of the victim's wounds, it is nearly certain the perpetrator of the crime would have gotten blood on his person or clothing. Authorities also found that 2 articles of clothing from one of the girls was missing from the crime scene, while the rest of their clothing was recovered. It also appeared the girls' bodies were moved and staged. The agent goes on to say, based upon my training and experience, it is common for perpetrators of this type of crime to take a souvenir or in some fashion memorialize the crime scene. The agent also references the video on Libby's phone, confirming it was 43 seconds long. Up until now, only a few seconds have been made public. The agent also confirms the girls were being followed by the suspect on the Monon High Bridge Trail. The agent also says there were no visible signs of a struggle or fight. The search warrant is for the property of Ronald Logan, who owned the land where the 2 girls were found dead. You see him here in this video shot by Wish TV in 2017, just days after the girls were murdered. It describes his activity the day the girls went missing. The agent says Logan claimed someone drove him to an aquarium store in Lafayette on the afternoon of February 13th, at the time the girls disappeared. But the agent says these statements were found to be factually false and intentionally designed to deceive law enforcement officers. The agent says Logan contacted his cousin and asked him to tell that story before the bodies were found. Based on investigators' experience, it is reasonable to believe that the creation of an alibi prior to the discovery of a crime indicates culpability or knowledge of the crime.
Monday afternoon, I was in Lafayette Aquarium World getting a tropical fish for my aquarium. So when I came home, one of the neighbors stopped and asked permission to come back here and look for the missing girls, and that's the first time I knew anything about it. So I fooled with my tropical fish the whole time that the search was going on Monday night, but then they didn't find them until Tuesday around noon or 1 or whatever it was.
Now, I don't think Ron Logan is Bridge Guy. I just added these for entertainment's sake for those who, insist that it could be him. And I'm saying that because there are people who really think that, and that's fine. I mean, I just don't think that. And I've done the comparison with Richard Allen the same way that I'm doing it here with Ron Logan after this, and we'll just watch them back to back. I think Allen went forward in a panic because of Bridge Guy video. Right. And did he purposely leave Libby's phone with her? Remember, they recovered her phone. So I'm thinking, was he just screw it? It's not going to come back on me, so I don't need to take the phone? Or was it sort of like a panic, trying to leave the scene type of thing and accidentally left the phone? What are you guys thinking? Because a lot of people have been like, that was stupid of him to leave her phone. But again, if he was just under a catfish account, maybe he didn't think it was important to take it with him. You know what I mean? Because the account that would have been seen them conversing with would have fallen back on Anthony Schatz and then Keegan Kline. I don't know, guys. And again, yeah, Ron Logan was on probation for multiple DWIs and was driving at the time, and a reason for him to lie and get an alibi. Yep. And that's another thing that I just want to, obviously reiterate and put out there, because people are still adamant, no, Logan could be him. Yeah, and that's true, Vicky. Logan sure made himself look guilty, and the FBI agent, spells it right out on that warrant. He told us he was here. He wasn't. People who do this in crimes that I've, researched and solved before do this because of being guilty or guilty knowledge of the crime. Now, that was just a footnote, which is, noteworthy. Doesn't necessarily mean that that's why he lied, because he's guilty of the murders, but don't know, guys. Where did they find her phone? I believe it was right near the body. Panic situation, accidentally left it. I mean, I could definitely see that. Good morning, Insanely Confused. Glad you're here. And I just wanted to take a minute and thank all my moderators. You guys are awesome. I just really appreciate you guys. And I also appreciate everyone else, obviously. And give me a like if you haven't. I'm reading comments, so Cray Cray said forgot or did not know she recorded him. Right. Like, did he forget and not think that they were doing that? I don't know. It's very strange. It's a strange element in the case. Good morning, Alicia. It's good to see you. Alrighty. So, again, we're just going to play this side-by-side comparison to entertain the idea that Bridge Guy is Ron Logan. I don't necessarily think that. The majority of you guys, I don't think that, but I will say there are people who are saying it. So this is just for research purposes. This isn't my theory. I just want to put this out there. So let me just play the rest of this edited video, and then we'll get into the court TV stuff and chat some more. Okay, guys? Taking the phone would not be smart. Easy track. Removing the SD card might have been a good move. Still might be uploaded to the cloud, though. Good point. And you know what, Ben? We talked about that on another stream, too. So I don't know why I forgot the aspect that, like, he had to leave the phone because it would have been tracked. Duh. Thank you so much. Alrighty. I'm trying to think too. The other little thing that I wrote in my notes while that FBI notes were being read was, it stated 2 articles were missing of the 2 articles of clothing were missing from the victims. It didn't specify what piece of clothing, but it did let us know that that was probably the souvenir that he was taking for whatever reason. I'm just going to pause it real quick because this, even though it's just a photo of his face, I see in Bridge Guy, it's Richard Allen's nose and chin from certain angles. And this is sort of, I've tried to pause it as at one of the angles. The way that his nose kind of like hooks down in a way, like his nose, I guess you could, if you were drawing it, like, because I'm an artist, so this is how I'm kind of visualizing it. It's sort of like a triangle, but like hangs down in a way. You know what I mean? When I see images of Bridge Guy, like a close-up one, I see Richard Allen's nose and chin distinctively, and that's just my opinion. So if I had to look at facial features, Ron Logan, he wears glasses. I just don't see the face matching up as much. And I know that I've had people comment and be like, law enforcement says that Richard Allen is Bridge Guy. So why are we even debating this? Well, for one, you're innocent until proven guilty. For two, it's a grainy image, the Bridge Guy video. It's hard to tell that that's who it is, in my opinion. So, but ultimately, I do agree with law enforcement that whether Richard Allen, killed them himself, all by himself, I don't know. But in my opinion, I really think that this is Bridge Guy. yes, insanely, I went to art school, and I don't draw. I specialize in ceramic. So that's where my expertise is. So yeah, let me continue this again. And there will be a voice comparison too in this mix. So prepare your ears in case like the volume is a little bit louder, because when I edit for the voice comparison of Richard Allen and Bridge Guy, I kind of had to turn it up a little bit. So just prepare your ears for that.
There's the wheelchair coming up.
All right. So that is the end of my little edit. I'm going to switch over to Court TV segment that came out 5 months ago. This is in reference to the search warrant that was discovered and revealed more information about the murders that day from that warrant. So we're just going to go back 5 months, go back in time, check out what Court TV was stating about the search warrant that was revealed. And again, guys, I've been following this case, but only through headlines. You can tell by my channel and obviously in my Facebook group. If you're in there, we discuss, all different crimes. It's sad how many different things that we kind of jump to, like rabbit holes we fall down. But this has always been kind of on my radar, but I haven't dug deep until now. So we're just going to watch this older Court TV segment from 5 months ago and just kind of, reabsorb everything that was stated earlier this year. So let me just remove this from the screen and thank you guys again for being here. And then I will play that segment. Let me just get it set up on my other screen real quick, because I don't want any commercials to start us off. But anyways, I hope you guys like that little comparison. I know that I shared it last time, but this time I kind of added in the Ron Logan before the Richard Allen comparison, because like I said, people are still unsure.
On Monday, February 13th, 2017, at approximately 1 o'clock p.m., 13-year-old Abby Williams and 14-year-old Libby German were dropped off by Libby's sister near an abandoned rail bridge in Delphi, Indiana. The two young teenagers were just going to walk around and hang out. They were scheduled to be picked up at 3:15 by Libby's father, but the girls never showed up. The family began to search and then called police. At approximately 12:15 p.m. on the next day, February 14th, the bodies of the two girls were found in a wooded area near the Delphi Historic Trail, approximately 1/2 mile upstream from the bridge. During the course of the investigation, police released this short video of the suspect, recorded on Libby's phone. That man has never been identified, and no one has been charged with the murders. But now, 5 years later, a warrant has been uncovered, which may reveal a lot more information about exactly who police believe may be responsible. Tonight, we take an in-depth.
This season, the most beautiful gifts come from Sephora at Kohl's.
Information. Does it solve the Delphi murders of Abby Williams and Libby German?
This season, the most beautiful gifts come from Sephora at Kohl's. Light
I'm Vinny Politan. Great to have you with us tonight here for closing arguments. And tonight we are taking a deep dive into the Delphi murders. And as I sit here tonight, I am still surprised, somewhat shocked that 5 years later, this case has not been solved. But new information we're going to take a look at tonight may open some eyes about what really happened to Abby and Libby. Now, let's begin with what I think is at the heart of all of this, which are police in this case. And police are in charge of this investigation. And generally, you know, folks like you and I in the true crime world, we like to believe in and trust our police, and they have a job to do. Their job is simple but not easy, right? Arrest the bad guys. That's what they have to do. Figure out who it is that committed the crime. In this case, we're talking about the murder of 2 young teenage girls. And that's their mission. And whatever it takes to get that done, that's what they will do. Now, in this story, in this investigation, in this case, there's another party that is very involved and invested in all of this, and that's the media. The media absolutely invested in this case. And the job of the media always is to get the story, right? Get the story. Find out what the story is. And in this case, the story is, who are these young girls? What happened to them? And finally, who is responsible? And you and I both know that in the world of true crime, you know, investigators are doing their job. The media, when I say media, I mean, you know, guys like me, folks like Judge Ashley here on Court TV, podcasters, writers, anyone, all members of the media, all trying to get that story. But we don't have the whole story here. And police have not gotten the bad guy yet, which gets me to the relationship between the police and media. You know, we're sometimes great friends, sometimes we're enemies. And sometimes it's like the media gets angry at investigators for whatever reason. You're not giving us the information, you're not answering the questions. Sometimes investigators get angry with us because we're asking too many questions or releasing information that is impeding their investigation. So there's a
I'm just going to pause it real quick and say hello to everyone who's joined us. Broken Justice, good to see you. Lisa said, I suspect he didn't do this alone. I do think he is bridge guy, though. I'm there with you, Lisa. Good morning, Krista. It's good to see you. I know it is incredibly sad, but I agree. It's just a very interesting case to kind of unravel and research. Honestly, I've fallen down this rabbit hole. Most people think the second trying isn't meant to be Richard Allen and is the second suspect. I mean, it's definitely a possibility. Good morning, Rexy. Good to see you.
friction there. And a lot of times that friction plays out early on in an investigation, right? When police are first investigating the case, and you know how critical those first 48 hours are. But then when the case gets a little bit older, you know, sometimes you think about, well, what's going on here? Why hasn't this case been solved? And many times that's when the media kind of dives in a little deeper, gets a little more aggressive. And sometimes you see that ends up resulting in new information uncovered, eyes opened, and sometimes people get arrested. Let's talk about the story that we're talking about tonight. It's about 2 young girls, Abby and Libby. They're 2 good friends. But it's been 5 long years now, and we don't have an answer as to what happened and how they were murdered and who is responsible. So take a look. We have some video, some images of Abby and Libby. Again, I said, great friends, did things together, just normal teenage girls. But on February 13th, 2017, they went walking on a trail dropped off by Libby's sister near the Monon High Bridge in the town of Delphi, Indiana. On the 13th, they were supposed to be picked up by Libby's dad around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. They didn't show up. The family knew something was wrong. They were searching, they called police in. And then unfortunately, the next day around noon, their bodies were discovered. Now, during the course of this investigation, police have held all their information very close, very tight, not releasing things, releasing little tiny slivers of information. One of those little slivers is a video of the suspect. Let's take a look at that cell phone video. Libby actually recorded this on her cell phone. And we've been looking at this video for a few years now, wondering who is this guy? And how is it that we have not been able to identify him? Someone who knows him, I would think, would be able to recognize him. Delphi.
And remember, this is 5 months ago. This is before Richard Allen's arrest. This is before we ever even knew who he was, before we knew his wife, Kathy. And that's another hot comment in my comment section. people are very defensive of the wife. She had no idea. She didn't know. And she's the victim. He's a narcissist. She's been under his control. And it's hard to speak up against somebody who abuses you, blah, blah, blah. And I'm not discrediting any of that as being fact, because we do know that they do have a history of DV. There were police reports. And obviously it is difficult for a victim to kind of speak out against a DV spouse, you know what I mean? But here we just had Vinny say this before. I mean, again, this is from May this year, before everything we know. And hello, Leo girl and Allison, thank you for being here. He said, surely someone who knows this guy would have said, I recognize him. Now, he didn't say the wife of this guy on the bridge should know that that's her husband. But, now fast forward months later, the way that Vinny's saying this, surely somebody would recognize this guy. Like, I'm not saying the wife knew, but I'm with everyone who's kind of like, how did she not know? Like, and again, people hide things. We've talked about BTK and he hid it from his wife. And, it is definitely possible. I just wanted to pause it quick and just comment on the fact that, even Vinny is saying at this point, surely somebody who knows this bridge guy would have said, I recognize him. But again, I guess his wife could have been totally oblivious. I'm not saying that she wasn't. So I just want to put that out there, because a lot of people are very defensive of the wife. And then there's people who say there's no way she didn't know. So time will tell, right?
Not a big town, folks. Not a big town whatsoever. Then, after they released the video, they released a little piece of audio to see if anyone would recognize the voice. Let's take a listen. Down the hill. Down the hill. That's where they ended up going. That's where they were found, down the hill.
And obviously people had suspected or theorized that a gun was being used to control the girls. So were they being pointed at, down the hill and telling them? It's all speculation, but we're going to do it today.
Then there were some sketches released as well. I always wondered about this. Why are we releasing sketches if we've got an actual video? I didn't understand that, but there were two separate sketches that looked nothing alike that were released. And I asked Abby's mom about it. Take a listen.
Says Indiana State Police noted when they produced the second sketch that while they felt like the first one was important, so was the second, and that we need to spend as much time focusing on the second one as we did the first one for obvious reasons. We felt like we knew who the first person in the sketch was, and now it was time to focus on the other person that we didn't know who was out there that day. So I believe they noted that, and that's what we've been told, and that's what we need to press forward with.
So a lot of confusion in this case. There's been a lot because a little piece of information, not a lot of explanation, but I understand. We're the media. We want the answers. We want to get the story. Investigators want to solve.
Hold on. I need to rewind and listen to that again, because I swear I thought I heard her say that they have two sketches because it could be two people, but hang on. I might have heard that wrong.
Abby's mom about it. Take a listen.
Says Indiana State Police noted when they produced the second sketch that while they felt like the first one was important, so was the second, and that we need to spend as much time focusing on the second one as we did the first one for obvious reasons. We felt like we knew who the first person in the sketch was, and now it was time to focus on the other person that we didn't know who was out there that day. So I believe they noted that, and that's what we've been told, and that's what we need to press forward with.
So a lot of confusion in this case.
So did I just understand that correctly, that she's stating, and again, this is 5 months ago, that the second sketch is for possibly another suspect? Because last live stream, I shared with you guys the law enforcement officer who was presented the two sketches, and, the media said, hey, what's this about? They look nothing alike. And he said, well, if you combine the two sketches, I think you're going to see that it is Richard Allen. So I don't know. The first sketch is from the bridge video, and the second one was from an eyewitness. Thank you, Allison. Okay, that's how it is sounding to you. Okay, so if that's true, well, that's just law enforcement is going to do the tactics that they need to do. When media, like Vinny was specifying earlier, he said, the media hounds law enforcement. They want answers, and law enforcement gets annoyed with the media because they want to protect the investigation and keep their stuff close to the chest. So when in our last video, when we seen the journalist ask the officer about this two sketches being different, and he said, well, if you combine them, I think you're going to realize that it's Richard Allen. It's interesting that he said that instead of what Abby's mom just stated, which was the first sketch was the guy in the bridge guy video, and then the second sketch was possibly somebody else who was there that day. So it sounds like the family and law enforcement are saying two different things 5 months apart from each other. So I find that interesting and noteworthy. Obviously, law enforcement is allowed to lie to the public to keep integrity of the investigation. So is that what was being done by the officer in that interview? I mean, he did kind of dance around the Keegan-Klein questions as well. So, he said that it will be made clear once you see the probable cause affidavit. It'll be clear why it was redacted and kept from the public. So we're all just anxiously waiting. And it is November 18th. Richard Allen is due back in court. And, they're just going to discuss on the 22nd whether or not that probable cause affidavit will remain sealed or not. So time is going to tell, and we'll find out.
There's been a lot because little pieces of information, not a lot of explanation, but I understand. We're the media. We want the answers. We want to get the story. Investigators want to solve the case. And they're holding back things for investigative purposes, okay? But it's been 5 years. That's where we are. Let me bring in my guests joining me tonight, if I can. Joining me in studio, Court TV anchor Ashley Wilcott, who has spent time in Delphi. Thanks so much, Judge. Great to see you. Also with us, a couple of podcasters joining us tonight in Indianapolis, Indiana. Podcasters of the Murder Street podcast, Anya Kane and Kevin Greenlee are with us. We just can't put them up on the screen yet, but we'll get to them in just a second. Let me begin with you, Judge.
Thanks for having me.
Great to see you in person. You were there. Tell me about your trip to Delphi, what you saw, what sort of struck you about the case.
Listen, Benny, 3 years after they disappeared, still no answers in spite of the video, the pictures, the sketches, the audio that you referenced. So we went to Delphi, and I'm going to say this, a quaint, beautiful place. It was beginning of March 2020, so it was cold. But it was a beautiful blue sky. It was sunny. This is a picture. Now, you cross the big bridge, the Monan Bridge that you referenced, and as soon as you cross the bridge, the trailhead starts. And this are people that I was with walking the trailhead exactly where these girls walked. This is what it looked like if you look down to the right. Beautiful, beautiful. But what do you not see in these pictures? People. And everyone I spoke to said before this happened, there were people, Vinny.
And not only, so this is obviously years later, she said, but around the same time, what we don't see is people, like she said. So obviously a secluded private place, but no leaves on the trees makes it like a very vulnerable area in a way that they could have been seen. So the fact that the assailant, allegedly Richard Allen and whoever else, took the opportunity to do this, it was nice weather that day. How were they so certain that other people weren't like, oh, let's go for a hike? It's just very brazen, ballsy. They must have felt completely confident. And that's why I feel like there's more people involved. Someone had to have been a lookout in a way. That's just my opinion. With no leaves and bush and all that and brush, it's just very risky for this to have been a crime of opportunity. Oh, let me just do this. Spur of the moment whim. This had to have been so premeditated and triangulated with other people to kind of look out, make sure nobody's coming, etc. The fact that Ron Logan allegedly wasn't home on his property and that's where they were found, it's just all very mysterious. Did Ron Logan allegedly know, or did the assailant know that Ron Logan wasn't going to be home, so that's why they were there? It's just very deep how this goes. And like we discussed earlier, it was mentioned that the creek was only 60 feet away from the bodies that were discovered, and they were covered in blood, and that the assailant had to have been covered in blood. then the creek being right there, part of the premeditated aspect of it, was the creek there so he could rinse off, and it's just a lot of questions.
Even on cold days, if the sun was out, the people were out. When we were there, noon, people might be out on lunch. Nobody was walking. Nobody. It was eerie. It was quiet. It was not what people said it was like before these two girls were murdered. It was creepy. It was creepy, and we walked and it was quiet. You could hear everything. There was no traffic on the interstate. There was no one in the woods. The further you walked, the quieter it got. And you look around, in that time of year, it's the same time of year as when they were murdered, no leaves on the trees, pretty barren. So you could see all the way down the hill like that picture just showed. You could see forever in front of you because it wasn't as if the trees were covered with leaves like they would be at a different time of year. So all I could think were two things. Number one, this has affected this community to an extent that they don't even use a beautiful park because of what happened there in the tragedy. But number two, Vinny, how did someone not see something? Look at what the picture just looked like. How did someone not see or hear these girls disappear and get killed?
Yeah, especially if there's other folks there. And you, as you referenced, at that time, it was much more popular. It was February, maybe it was a little bit colder on that particular day on the 13th. Are you shocked that we're here in 2022 now and still no one has been held responsible?
Absolutely. I was shocked 3 years ago. It's why I went on my own dime to this place because I couldn't believe it. And then you saw a little picture of a memorial. And that's where, if we walk down the path that there was the picture of, you get to where two paths merge. And right at that corner, before you get to the bridge that this audio was taken on, or the video rather, that's where that memorial was. And there's a picture of the map and exactly where you can follow the trail. And Vinny, how can this not be solved? How can this not be solved? I thought this 3 years ago. Are you kidding me? How many times do you have a teenager murdered who must think, I'm in trouble. This is a bad guy. I better make sure my phone's on and get a video and an audio, and we still haven't caught them.
And we haven't. Well, let's get to the bottom of what we do know tonight, and a lot has to do with our two guests joining us now in Indianapolis. Podcasters from Murder Street, incredible podcast. Make sure you check it out. Every detail, every bit of information in this case is in that podcast. Kevin Greenlee and Anya Kane, great to see you again tonight. Let me start here. You've uncovered this new warrant. Tell me in general how you got or maybe you can't reveal how you got your hands on the warrant, but you got the warrant. Where's this warrant? Is this warrant an FBI warrant?
Yes, thanks so much for having us on. This is a warrant that was written up by an FBI agent out of the area around Chicago. And we can't talk about how we got it, but basically it's new information to the public, but it's actually quite an old warrant. This was written up in March of 2017, so a month after the murders.
Let me put up on the screen a little bit from this. And again, we've got with us Anya Kane, Kevin Greenlee from the Murder Sheet podcast. This is what they got. And it says on it that LG and AW were found dead with wounds caused by a blank weapon on the property owned by Ronald Logan. The location of the crime scene is approximately 1,400 feet from Logan's residence. Now, tell me a little bit about that. The location of the crime scene versus where Ronald Logan lives. Like, how would you get from Logan's house to where this all is?
The bodies were found basically about 1,400 feet from his back door. And of course, if you have a couple of dead bodies found on your property, the police are going to get interested. And so they were interested in Logan. And there were a couple of other reasons why they were interested in him at that time, including the fact that he had a history of committing domestic violence against his adult female partners. And also that during the time of the murders, he actually lied about his whereabouts.
Oh, that's a little bit of a problem, slight problem there on that one. Let me put up on the screen some more information we have from what you uncovered here. You've got, it also appeared that the girls' bodies were moved and staged.
I just want to pause it right there and just comment real quick. You know, it is a problem that Ron Logan lied, but I think that we can kind of understand somewhat of why he did that. I think it would be extremely idiotic for Ron to pull this off and then keep them on his property. I'm not sure if somebody was maybe trying to frame Ron Logan. I mean, is that possible? Again, I'm just speaking out loud on a whim. I don't know all that, but hello, Judes. It's good to see you. Thank you guys for being here. And yeah, a lot of people think Amstel that Ron Logan was part of a P ring, but we don't have anything that leads to that 100%, right? Or is that just speculation? Other people have said that Ron Logan was friends with the Kleins. I heard that rumor. I don't know if it's factual. You guys let me know what you've heard or if you think it's just rumor.
There was no visible signs of a struggle or a fight And then that final one, to me, this is the one that's got my head exploding tonight. On March 12th, 2017.
And before we get to Vinny's head exploding, the fact that they said there was no signs of a struggle, and this is all in this warrant. We've talked about it earlier in the stream. A gun being used might have, stopped signs of a struggle being shown. The fact that they were also found 3/4 of a mile up from the bridge could also be another reason why a struggle wasn't shown, because when they're at the crime scene, which is, like he said, right outside of Ron Logan's back door, nothing around it appeared to be, there was no like foot marks from a scuffle or anything like that. There was no ripped clothing maybe on the ground or something that would indicate that they were fighting. Does that mean a gun was used? What exactly does that mean? I see people in chat speculating he works near a pharmacy. Did he drug them? I mean, I don't know how that would go down to be that close to kind of get them to consume something, to be drugged, but we don't know those details. We don't have the toxicology. So I guess we wouldn't know what was found in their system yet.
Blank explained in an interview to law enforcement that Logan called him on the morning of February 14th, 2017, and asked him to provide the alibi for Logan's drive to the aquarium in Lafayette. This phone call was made prior to law enforcement's discovery of Libby and Abby's deceased bodies. Am I reading this right? That according to this warrant, he's calling someone for an alibi before anyone knows there's a murder?
That's correct. One thing that's interesting about Mr. Logan is that he was on probation at the time of the murders. So he was not supposed to be driving, and he was that day. So it's one of those things. It's certainly and rightfully attracted the interest of law enforcement at the time. But there's also an alternate explanation that he possibly was trying to get out of something or get ahead of something without necessarily being aware of how serious the situation was involving these two girls.
Okay, let me ask the judge. Judge.
See, that makes sense to me too, how even though he had come up with this alibi before the girls' bodies were found, like she said, like, well, it might not have been as, he didn't know the type of situation that he was kind of covering for, you know what I mean? So while it seemed like, okay, yeah, cover for me, tell them I was here when I wasn't, if he had done all that before even knowing that the bodies were murdered and all that, then that's interesting and noteworthy, because it could definitely just be like, oh, wow, like I had no idea that they were going to be murdered. Now I'm screwed because I asked somebody to lie about my alibi. It just seems like it could definitely have been a situation like that. And then it just snowballed out of control. The bookshelf situation. This is an old segment. This is from May. So I don't know if they moved or what, but do I think the trial will be televised? I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. Richard Allen's main interest is the kill. He killed first, no struggle. Yeah, a lot of people suspect that he's done this before. Good morning, CDT. It's good to see you. I wish the girls had bear spray that day. I don't know. It's like sometimes you freeze up, like even when you have like pepper spray or something. I don't know. But again, she was brilliant by recording this whole thing on her phone.
Alibi for driving because I'm not supposed to drive because my license is suspended and I'm on probation. I don't want to get in trouble. But do you call someone up like the day after you drive? Like you haven't been. Wait, let me ask, was he caught driving? Did anyone say you were out driving? Did someone catch him driving? Is that what happened here?
They basically asked him, I believe, what were you doing this afternoon? And he was driving. So I think he was either admit to a probation violation or lie and get someone to back you up.
But what's the timing of it? He's not questioned about driving until after the bodies are discovered, right?
Well, the day the girls went missing, pretty much everyone in the area was asked, where were you this afternoon? Did you see anything?
Okay.
And so he was, so you certainly asked basic questions like that.
Okay, so he's asked basic questions. All right, let me bounce this off the judge. Judge, what do you think? If you're illegally driving a car that's suspended, could get in trouble, right? Judge could throw you in the can for that, violating your probation. Does that make sense? That he's getting the alibi?
I don't think it passes the smell test, Vinny. It doesn't seem like that would be the reason that a person gets an alibi. If they choose to drive while they're on probation, they choose to drive. Okay, I was driving, better get an alibi. To me, doesn't carry enough weight. I don't believe it.
Yeah, but there's always a little explanation, right? Okay, Kevin, Anya, staying with us throughout the.
Now, here's the thing. This is before Richard Allen's arrest. So this woman is very much seems suspicious of Ron Logan, even though Ron Logan is dead at this point still. He died in 2020. So just very interesting. I really wonder what this woman's thoughts are. I know that she's been on court TV since, but she hasn't really talked about Ron Logan. But it seems like she was sort of suspicious of him, even after the fact that we kind of did the comparison. And I don't think Bridge Guy is Ron Logan. What do you guys think in chat?
The hour here. Judge Ashley, working late for us tonight, coming in. Thank you so much.
Thank
Appreciate
you,
it. Great
Happy
to
to
see
be
you.
here.
Great to see you. All right, when we come back, we've got much more to get through here. Wow. How about the man who called up for the fake alibi? What does he look like? And does he look like the person in the video? Is there any similarity between the two? Like, do they have similar jackets or hats or anything? I don't know. We'll take a look when we come back.
Officially licensed everything.
Guys. Down here. Guys. Down here. Guys. Down here.
Welcome back. The probable cause warrant that was obtained and released by the Murder Sheet podcast specifically states that Ronald Logan is physically similar to that suspect we just saw in the cell phone video taken by Libby German. That's how the document reads. Logan's physical build is consistent with that of the male suspect videoed by Libby on the Monon High Bridge. And it also states that Logan's voice is not inconsistent with that of the person in the video. Interesting.
See, that drives me nuts. Ron Logan's voice is not inconsistent with the person in the video, but it's not saying it is consistent. I don't know, guys. It just really drives me nuts the way that they worded that, because it's basically saying like it could be, but now that we have Richard Allen in that comparison, I'm confident that Bridge Guy is not Ron Logan.
Ronald Logan spoke with a reporter from Indianapolis news station WTHR the day after the bodies of Abby and Libby were discovered in 2017. And take a look at his appearance. I mean, tan hat, blue windbreaker. Let's watch some of what he told WTHR back in February of 2017.
Who would have thought they let their children out to do something special that day, take a trip down, and it turned out a disaster like this? The area that they were in is very hard to get to. I mean, you can't get there unless you walk there. I mean, so somebody would be walking with them or something.
Feast your eyes on the cornucopia of Jeep models. The all-new Jeep Compass, Cherokee, Renegade.
Wow. Let's bring our guest back in. Joining us tonight in Winchester, Virginia, body language expert, Dr. Stephen Langston. In Salt Lake City, Utah, private investigator Jason Jensen. And still with us in Indianapolis, Indiana, the co-podcasters of Murder Sheet. Again, folks, check it out. It's got everything. Anya Kane, Kevin Greenlee still with us. Stephen Langston, want to ask you first, as we took a look at Ronald Logan in that interview with the news, local news comes around, microphone. Anything strike you about what he said or how he said it?
There's two things that really stand out in that particular cut. You see his shoulders are constantly doing this shrugging motion here, which is could be, could not be. I'm not really sure, but he's saying some very definitive things about how it's not possible, but he keeps doing this. You can't unsee that whenever a person's talking about, they're really uncertain about what they're trying to say, that shoulder shrug kicks into play. But really, I focus in on his mouth there. He is showing some signs of disgust. You can see the corner of his mouth pulling down. It's hidden by his glasses. I wouldn't be surprised at all if you could see some of that scrunching of his nose, but he has this real just kind of I'm sick to my stomach, or I'm disgusted with either what's happening, what I'm saying. Of course, we don't know what's going on in his mind by any means, but he's definitely showing some very serious signs of disgust as he's talking through this part.
Jason Jensen, private investigator. I know you've been taking a very close look at this case. Your thoughts about Ronald Logan and the video that we see, Ronald Logan, what he looks like, it's his property. And you've got investigators here saying there are consistencies in his general build and the build of the person in the video.
Well, yes, exactly, Vinny. Where the FBI agent says there's consistency with this build, we can go on a step further and say that the actual jacket that he's worn 2 days later during the interview is very similar, if not the exact jacket.
But also, I mean, just knowing the fact that that warrant, the search warrant, and the FBI agent clearly states in that search warrant, the assailant would have been covered in blood. You know, judging by the crime scene, judging by the way the bodies were covered in blood, whoever did this to the girls would be covered in blood. So the fact that they're comparing the jackets is like, so you guys are suspecting he washed it? Or he's just like, you know how cartoon characters wear the same thing every single episode? Like, so Ron Logan just owns a bunch of these like blue jackets at his disposal and just like puts them on. I get where people thought that that was exact jacket free of bloodstains, right? Allegedly. I get why people thought that that was an interesting element. And honestly, when I was following this case through the headlines, I was like, oh, wow. Yeah, like that guy's jacket. I mean, it's exact. But now that we know, you know, I mean, obviously the way that the girls were murdered, that they would not be, I mean, the person who did it wouldn't be able to just wash the jacket and put it on. So it is an interesting note, but I just don't think that the jacket has anything to do with, you know, it being Bridge Guy.
And that ball cap has even the same dimples across the top that if you didn't know better, you'd say that this is indeed this individual being video recorded, but law enforcement hasn't come out and said that. They've just said this is the suspect, but looking the two, comparing the two side by side, it looks like the exact same person. You just don't have the visual clarity with the Snapchat video.
The other thing I wanted to note as well is when I compare, when I was editing in that little segment that we did earlier, Ron Logan next to Bridge Guy, you know, the mustache is distinctively different. Bridge Guy, I see having that goatee type where it goes around the mouth all the way. Ron Logan's mustache, you know, he's been growing that for a very long time, probably since the 70s. It's very thick. If Ron Logan was Bridge Guy, I believe in this clip, or in this photo of Bridge Guy on the screen right now, you would be able to see the white, thick mustache, in my opinion.
That you have with the reporter recording.
Anya Kane, Kevin Greenlee, your thoughts and what have you uncovered about Ronald Logan, the way he looks, his physical attributes, right? We're looking for this guy in the video. Are there things that you've noticed or picked up that are either consistent or inconsistent with that being a match?
One thing we can say is that some of his people who knew him basically said to law enforcement in the warrant that they felt that the Bridge Guy, so to speak, looked like Ron Logan. So there was some feeling among people who knew him that it could be him.
So people who actually, and this is what I've been saying all along. I'm like, I look at that video, and if someone knows that person, I think they would recognize him. Do we know if those folks came forward voluntarily, like early on, once the video is released, saying, hey, did they pick up the phone and say, hey, that could be Ronald Logan?
In the probable cause affidavit the FBI agent wrote to secure the warrant, she specifically says that there were 15 tips from the public, people who came forward with information that they believed connected Logan to the murders.
Wow. So here we are, Jason Jensen. Again, in 5 years, and again, investigators not, and I understand, I'm a former prosecutor. I know what it takes to prove a case beyond any and all reasonable doubt. But I'm seeing circumstances here, Jason. Someone looking to make up an alibi, you know, looking for a fake alibi. Yeah, he's got another argument for it, but then it's his property, 1,400 feet from his backyard. 1,400 feet from his backyard. Don't we look at like the closest people first, Jason?
Yes, they always do. They always look to see who was either in close proximity to the victims and the crime scene, as well as relatives or somebody that may have a motive to cause this, you know, a death of somebody. But here we got, under the totality of the circumstances, a lot of different things that come together and portray a picture that Ronald Logan is likely the murderer here.
Let me ask you, Anya, the video that they released, is there I presume there's a much longer video, and they've just released a little piece of it. What do we know about that? And what do we know about the way the man on the bridge is walking? So many people have talked about that through the years. Is it an optical illusion because it's a short video that we're looping? Or is there something to the way he walks?
Yeah, that's a great question. I know that it is a longer recording that they have from Libby's phone. It's about 53 seconds long. And the conversation, the guys down the hill.
Just want to correct that misinformation right there. It's 43 seconds long, not 53.
Happens at the end of that video. So in terms of how he's moving, people have speculated that a lot. Some people think he looks like he's limping. Others look like it's a unusual gait, perhaps. One thing that if you've actually been to the site, it's a terrifying bridge. Basically, it looks like it would be difficult to walk on. It's very spaced out. It's very high up. Looks like it's rotting. And so I've always wondered if this was a person who was unaccustomed to being up there and maybe just a little bit nervous. I will note that Mr. Logan was in his 70s at the time of the murders. So that has made some people wonder,
And again, now that we've uncovered more information about Richard Allen, come to find out him and his family have frequented these trails numerous times. We actually have a photo of Richard Allen's daughter being photographed on this exact bridge. So now that we've seen this segment months later with more information that we know, it's interesting that it was being talked about, that somebody who was on that bridge must have been confident in the area, confident in those trails. And it makes sense that now that we know Richard Allen only lives 2 miles away from this area, less than 2 miles, it is all coming together. It's making more sense now.
the man in his 70s is going to be able to just kind of casually stroll across this with such ease.
Stephen Langston, do you see anything in the way he's moving his body? Does that tell you anything? It's just a short piece of that video as we take a look at the bridge here.
You definitely can see him looking down. Now, whether or not that is trying to hide the face or he is looking, you look at the picture there with that separation between the rails, it is a treacherous thing. It could be a gate, but having his head down, hands in his pockets, it was also cold. There's lots of things there that could be. Very circumstantial, though. Walking across that bridge, I'd probably have my eyes pointed down, too, wanting to know what I was going on.
Yeah, and by the way, I would never myself walk across that bridge. Stephen Langston, appreciate your insight tonight. Join us tonight in Virginia. Great to see you again. Anya, Kevin, Jason Jensen, all staying with us. When we come back, let's talk about what police are saying. Investigators, right? I mean, they are saying some things, but how does it line up in the timeline of everything that we know at this point? That's next.
I believe that while I'm the superintendent of state police, will identify this individual.
That's within 2 years, sir.
3
years. 3 years.
2 years and 11 months.
They didn't want to push you out.
Yeah.
So you think within 3 years something will
It could be today.
That was Indiana State Police Superintendent Doug Carter speaking to WRTV's Rafael Sanchez. That was February of this year. Now, Carter appeared on several TV programs around that time as February marked 5 years since Abby and Libby were killed. In an interview with Good Morning America, Carter spoke directly to the killer.
My resolve to catch him is as strong now as it was day one. But the difference now between now and day one is we know about you. A lot about you. Today could be the day. Sleep well.
All right, let's bring back in our guest. Joining us now in Chicago, Illinois, private investigator Erica Morse, and still with us, private investigator Jason Jensen, and podcasters of the Murder Sheet podcast, Anya Kane and Kevin Greenlee, still with us. Timeline, February this year when the superintendent's speaking, Kevin, Ronald Logan, the man we've been talking about tonight, has passed away. At the time he spoke in February, was Ronald Logan alive?
At the time the superintendent spoke in February, Ronald Logan had already passed away. And that's an interesting point to make because during the course of that interview, Superintendent Carter made it clear that he thought that the person responsible for these crimes was still alive.
I've also heard other sources claim that for a while now this year, law enforcement has been saying hints like, we're on to somebody, we just need something more solid. So, you know, in fact, it did appear like they were up to something, obviously, because Richard Allen wouldn't just be arrested for no reason.
And certainly behind the scenes, we hear from police that they are more interested in the Klein angle than in the Ronald Logan angle.
It's fascinating, and we're going to get into that in just a second.
And notice he just mentioned Klein. Law enforcement was more interested in the Klein angle, and people speculate now, obviously, that Klein might have turned in Richard Allen. And it's obviously speculation, but it does seem like things were in motion behind the scenes, even here back in May. And thank you all who have joined us. Thank you for being here. Please give a like if you haven't done so already. I really appreciate you all being here. And liking the stream is a free way to support the channel. So thank you so much.
Erica Morse, great to see you. We've been talking a lot about what Murder Sheet uncovered, the warrant from the FBI. We looked at this guy, Ronald Logan, kind of got the build. It's his property. He's asking someone to give him an alibi before the bodies are discovered. What are your thoughts about Ronald Logan and police seemingly not interested or not believing that he's connected here?
Hey, Vinny, my thoughts are he makes great reasonable doubt. So they need to firm this up, and they need to firm this up quickly. Whenever I'm looking at a case, I always look at it from the standpoint of a defense attorney and where there are gaps and, where there are holes. And what we
I'm the same way when I look at a case. Like, I look at it from the defense attorney's angle. That way you can come up with devil's advocate type situations. And yes, Ronald Logan is the perfect defense. But at the same time, it's like, now that we have the comparison with Richard Allen, again, this is an older segment before Richard Allen was arrested. It's interesting how the way everyone's minds were thinking then, like, it really seems like, and again, this was 5 years, almost 6 years now that there had been no arrest. So maybe it seems like people were like, Ronald Logan, it's got to be him. But now that we see the visual lined up side by side, I want a new panel with these same people to discuss this stuff again. Like, they have done other segments, but I want all the same people here together again. It would be interesting to see.
Don't want is for one of those gaps or one of those holes to be what catches us up in a trial. We want to make sure that we are doing our jobs and filling those holes. And this thing about Ronald Logan, first of all, to the Murder Sheet, you guys are relentless, and kudos to you, because every case deserves relentless. And thank you for uncovering this amongst all the other earlier stuff that you've uncovered. But, man, 15 calls to the tip line. I had that noted as well. That cannot be ignored. Roll this in or roll this out and move on.
Yeah, I'm a former prosecutor. You know that, Erica. Ronald, if they arrest someone else, Ronald Logan is the reasonable doubt in that case. He becomes what the case is all about from the defense perspective, obviously. Let's take a listen to here. This is Sergeant Jeremy Pierce from the Indiana State Police talking about now that other twist that has me more confused than anything in this case. It all has to do with a guy named Anthony Schatz.
While investigating the murders of Abigail Williams and Liberty German, detectives with the Carroll County Sheriff's Office and the Indiana State Police have uncovered an online profile named Anthony Schatz. This profile was being used from 2016 to 2017 on social media applications, including but not limited to Snapchat and Instagram. The fictitious Anthony Schatz profile used images of a known male model and portrayed himself as being extremely wealthy and owning numerous sports cars. The creator of the fictitious profile used this information while communicating with juvenile females to solicit nude images, obtain their address, and attempt to meet with them. Detectives are seeking information about the person who created the Anthony Schatz profile. Investigators would like any individual who communicated, met, or attempted to meet the Anthony Schatz profile to contact law enforcement.
Take me to the ocean, take me to the sea.
Okay, Anya, I know you guys have uncovered information related to Anthony Schatz as well. So what is the connection, the nexus between Libby and Abby and this Anthony Schatz profile, this fake profile, not the guy that we see in the pictures, but someone else behind it? What's the connection to Abby and Libby here?
So the connection is very strong between Anthony Schatz and the girls, the victims in this case. Basically, as we understand it from the transcript, Libby German was in contact with this Anthony Schatz profile shortly before her murder, was communicating with this person who she thought was a boy closer to her age. And in fact, according to the detectives during the interrogation of Kagan Klein, they said that she was actually enthralled by this person because, again, she thinks she's talking to another teenager and is just, being a typical teen online. And unfortunately, this turned out to be a predator.
Was that the reason that they went there that day? Was it to meet Anthony Schatz?
That's not clear. What we do know is that Libby was definitely interested in wanting to meet Anthony Schatz. And we know that the day after the crime, one of Libby's friends wrote to Anthony Schatz and said, "Isn't it a shame what happened to Libby?" And he wrote back, "Well, she was supposed to meet me, but she didn't show up." So those facts certainly suggest that there was a planned meeting, but we don't know that for sure. There's no actual hard, conclusive evidence of that.
Jason Jensen, so this is one of those twists in this whole case. That is there any connection between Ronald Logan and Anthony Schatz? Because that would be another place to look, right? Is there any way? Because they're saying there's other people connected to this fake social media account. Jason, have you been able to find any connection between these two?
There hasn't been any connection between Anthony Schatz and Ron Logan. Clearly, Ron Logan was the resident right there at the trail, and Anthony Schatz is a fake profile for a Keegan Klein, an individual in a nearby town of Peru, Indiana. So how is this guy related to Ron Logan is really the question that we're all looking to find.
Is there any connection, Anya?
As far as we've been able to find, no.
Okay, Erica Morse, this is, you've investigated so many cases. This is one of those situations where you're looking at, okay, this Anthony Schatz is the one. No, Ronald Logan is the one. How do you put these pieces together and have them make sense?
Well, first of all, I'm concerned that law enforcement is losing control of this narrative. The public and everything from podcasters to investigative reporters, everybody is digging into this while law enforcement remains silent. And I've worked cases just like it. And that's where there's an opportunity for a PI or a really strong advocate or podcaster to come forward and take control of this narrative and really start steering this investigation into mandating some answers. You can get the community pumped up enough where we say it's time that we get and we deserve an update. Because this has shifted. We've had 2 suspect sketches. Now we've had 4 names. And let's get this real clear. There are people in the true crime world, people who follow these podcasts, who follow these cases, who aren't exactly clear yet that Anthony Schatz is a pseudonym, not a 4th person of interest. And so as every name evolves, as every new individual evolves, this just dissects the case and spreads it out thinner from my perspective. We've talked over the last last year on this, that you have to really rule in or rule out and then move on. This just continues to be a cluster, so to speak, of additional names and additional profiles. They have to get a handle on this.
Anya and Kevin, we have about 20 seconds left here for you guys. Your thoughts about this case getting solved based on everything you know. Are we really close, or are we kind of like spinning around like we have been for 5 years?
I think that it's so important for everybody to remember that the case isn't solved yet. And, just because we have some names now and we have some people to discuss, it's really important that we keep on pressing and keep on looking for Abby and Libby's killer. This is not over yet. The police still need information. We still need to be looking for whoever did this and took these girls away from their families. So I would just stress that, nobody should make any conclusions until this is adjudicated.
The Murder Sheet podcast, amazing stuff. Anya Kane, Kevin Greenlee, thank you so much for your time tonight, and we'll speak again. Hopefully you'll come back on in the future as we continue to follow the story. Jason and Eric are going to stay with us. When we come back, we're going to hear what the Indiana State Police had to say today about all of this. Don't go anywhere.
If you have any information, please contact law enforcement by utilizing the tip email, Abby and Libby tip at cacoSHRF.com.
Still an active investigation, and we've been talking a lot about the Delphi murders tonight and this new information that the Murder Sheet podcast uncovered. And we invited the Indiana State Police on, and they declined. But let me read their statement to us tonight. It reads as follows. Recently, as you may already know, there's been some material released by a local podcast which was not provided to them by either the Indiana State Police nor the Delphi Double Homicide Task Force. As such, we are politely declining your request, as the integrity of this investigation must and always will come first. Now, I'd also like to read a statement from Doug Carter here. I would like to remind the public that this is an active and ongoing investigation, and we will do everything we can to protect its integrity and to not try it in the court of public opinion. We cannot publicly convict someone based on a single document which was not released by investigators.
Our profession will not allow us to speak on what we think, but to always speak about what we know. This is especially important with the heinous murders of Abby and Libby. We must continue to be mindful of their surviving family members and the entire Carroll County community who are affected by this investigation. Again, that's from the Indiana State Police Superintendent Doug Carter. Still with me, private investigators Jason Jensen and Erica Morse. So as we wrap up this hour, this relationship where I started this whole thing between the media and police, how do we make this better? How do we work this relationship in this case at this point, Erica, to get to the solution that everyone wants? Because as Judge Ashley told me in the beginning here, people in that area are still scared now to go to that trail. They don't go there anymore. They used to go there all the time. They don't go there anymore.
Correct. And that happens in a lot of cases where it's a cold case and the community doesn't have answers and they feel that law enforcement isn't supporting them by providing those answers. Listen, I've been trying to figure out how to increase and better the relationship between the media and law enforcement for 30 years. It's been something I've been doing my entire career. And you and I both know that that response from ISP was double-sided. It was, they always say they're protecting the integrity of the investigation. They're always going to throw shade or throw mud at a podcaster or reporter who uncovers something that doesn't fit with their narrative. And my only answer to that is, Vinny, you're not aware, but just in the time that we've been off for the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial, I've sent in two tips to the task force from viewers coming to me from your program. So what law enforcement needs to understand is that tips don't go away just because you don't communicate with the public. If you want people to back down and stop asking questions, give us something to work from. Give us something to understand. Right now, there are a lot of open questions, and there are not a lot of answers. And until we get those, people are going to try to solve this case in the court of public opinion. That's just how it is.
Jason Jensen, I'll give you the final word tonight on this case. Jason, did he freeze?
I lost him.
He froze on us. How about that? So, Erica, which one do you think is a better route here at this point? Is it?
I can.
Oh, you can hear. There you go, Jason.
Everything.
Oh, there's Jason.
There we go.
Sorry.
Your feed froze. I know you're a man of a lot of words. So when you weren't speaking, I got a little worried. So tell me your thoughts tonight, Jason, on how the media, police can work together here to help the public and obviously help the family get some justice and answers here.
Sure. One of the things that they can answer for us all, it was brought up to you by you earlier, was why sketches? Why are we dealing with a couple of sketches that may or may not look like the video that we already have? Why not enhance the quality of the video? Why are the sketches so significant when they have really nothing to do with the video at all? Where you even go to the reward posters today, it'll still identify that the suspect is the individual in Libby German's Snapchat video. So if that individual is the suspect, why do these sketches not look like that individual? We'd like to know. Usually a sketch comes from an eyewitness. So help us understand that, and maybe it'll bring some order for ISP's case.
Absolutely. It's a head scratcher.
Okay, everyone, thank you again for being here. Hello, Corey. Thanks for popping in. Hi, Roxanne. So that was a segment from Court TV from 5 months ago when they discovered the search warrant for Ron Logan's property. I just want to go through some of the noteworthy things real quick before we close things out. And I figured that I would just play through that media stuff that we talked about earlier about the crime scene, and then the comparisons of Ron Logan and Bridge Guy, and then Richard Allen and Bridge Guy, and we'll just close it out that way. But pretty much I just wanted to go through the fact of, we know for a fact that 2 articles of clothing, 1 from each victim, were taken. The bodies were 3/4 of a mile upstream from the bridge, found 60 feet away from the creek. We don't know where the weapon is, what was used exactly. We don't know where the assailant's clothing went because it was covered with blood. Obviously, we know that the bodies were moved and staged. It was and Ron Logan lives less than 2 miles away from the crime scene area. The 43-second video that Libby took shows the Bridge Guy, allegedly Richard Allen, in my opinion, following them. And they will never release the full 43 seconds because it is too disturbing for the public to see. So with that being said, I just want to thank you guys again for being here. And I want to thank my moderators and my members and everyone who participates in the chat. There was a comment, hold on, Ruckus Rocks podcast. In most cases, probable cause affidavits are sealed, and it's due to informants being used. So confidential informants being used. And that is definitely a possible theory. And I really appreciate all your guys' comments. And for those who are watching on replay, I just ask that you guys remain kind in your comments. I know that this case has been going on for almost 6 years. A lot of people are very attached to this case and getting the facts out. I do want to make it clear that I do state that there will be speculation in my live stream. So just keep that in mind. I try to keep it fact-based, but obviously I like to speculate and theorize until we get more facts. And this is just an example of the type of comments that this Delphi case has brought me. Okay, 2 hours ago. I can't stand opinionated podcasts, especially when you are pulling up people in your speculations. Get on with the info. Get on group chat by yourself, really. So I laugh at the rude comments, but I just want to remind you guys, for those who don't know this channel well, we do speculate, we do theorize. I like to bounce off live chat, and I like to read the replay viewers. But, if you have an opinion or you don't like the way I do something, there's no need to be rude in the comment section. You know what I mean? Just don't watch or whatever, But on that note, let me just pull up the information again that the FBI warrant indicated about the scene, and we'll just compare the two mentioned people today, which was Ron Logan, where the bodies were found on his property, only feet away from his back door. And then we'll obviously mention Richard Allen, do the voice comparison and the side-by-side comparison. I'm confident that Richard Allen is Bridge Guy. So like I said, people are still commenting, thinking it's not him. In my opinion, it is him. Appreciate you guys all being here. We will talk very soon. Probably we'll start covering the Idaho students case going on right now. I'll be gathering some stuff all weekend long to do a live stream Monday morning on that. And if you guys haven't checked out CDT, her channel is linked in my description box, and I'm sure moderators can put it in chat. And she'll be discussing the case of the Idaho students further, I believe, around 10:30. So meet me over there. I'll be moderating her chat. And I'm just going to close this out. Thank you guys all for being here again. I really appreciate you. I hope you guys all have a great weekend. Join us here Monday morning, and we will discuss more true crime then, okay? So see you guys soon. On November 22nd, 2022.
The agent writes, a large amount of blood was lost by the victims at the crime scene. Because of the nature of the victim's wounds, it is nearly certain the perpetrator of the crime would have gotten blood on his person or clothing. Authorities also found that 2 articles of clothing from one of the girls was missing from the crime scene, while the rest of their clothing was recovered. It also appeared the girls' bodies were moved and staged. The agent goes on to say, based upon my training and experience, it is common for perpetrators of this type of crime to take a souvenir or in some fashion memorialize the crime scene. The agent also references the video on Libby's phone, confirming it was 43 seconds long. Up until now, only a few seconds have been made public. The agent also confirms the girls were being followed by the suspect on the Monon High Bridge Trail. The agent also says there were no visible signs of a struggle or fight. The search warrant is for the property of Ronald Logan, who owned the land where the 2 girls were found dead. You see him here in this video shot by Wish TV in 2017, just days after the girls were murdered. It describes his activity the day the girls went missing. The agent says Logan claimed someone drove him to an aquarium store in Lafayette on the afternoon of February 13th, at the time the girls disappeared. But the agent says these statements were found to be factually false and intentionally designed to deceive law enforcement officers. The agent says Logan contacted his cousin and asked him to tell that story before the bodies were found. Based on investigators' experience, it is reasonable to believe that the creation of an alibi prior to the discovery of a crime indicates culpability or knowledge of the crime.
Monday afternoon, I was in Lafayette Aquarium World getting tropical fish for my aquarium. So when I came home, one of the neighbors stopped and asked for permission to come back here and look for the missing girls, and that's the first time I knew anything about it. So I fooled with my tropical fish the whole time that the search was going on Monday night, but then they didn't find them until Tuesday at around noon or 1 or whatever it was.
Downhill.
There's the wheelchair coming up.